everybody. Dan and Marcus back here with some discussions on swim technique, training, drills, dry land, you name it. We've had some discussions in the past on different catch styles, different kick styles. And today we're going to talk a little bit about different stroke styles, which maybe we think more about like what you're doing in the recovery phase and how that applies to different events and different speeds, and also just different skill sets of where you're at with a swimmer.
Hello everyone as well, and from my side, we have a good thing going here with these discussions, and a lot of people like it. So we want to continue that little these little excursions on or like discussions. Today we actually want to look at three different styles or recovery styles or like movement styles of the arms as such. And there I have catch up, which is my favorite. Then we have a sprinter, like more torque, like just a propeller kind of style. That would be more your favorite there, I think. And then we have the hybrid, the mix of both of it, which would be combining the both, or like almost combining the both, which is lies actually between the two of us, I think, on a if we will go and compete against each other, so we will meet on that style. I think from that I start, the catch-up style is really the one thing which is, as it says already, the catch up. Not ketchup like in the tomato sauce, but like it's usually translated here in Switzerland or in Europe. No, it is catch up, like you catching up with your other arm or your other hand, and that will be it. So you really just you really wait until the half stroke or like one arm stroke is finished. Like you start in front, and you only ever gonna start with your next arm stroke or your next stroke when the other one enters the water or actually even touches the other side. It's less, the touching one is more for the drill side, but it is really just catching up when the let's say the right hand starts to do the movement. When the right hand enters the water, the left hand would start its stroke, and that will be more the catch-up style. And the same thing will be also the other way around. When the left hand will go into the water, the right hand would start the stroke. It's more my forte. Why? It's very efficient for long distance if you have a good high elbow catch, and if you can prolong your stroke or the distance of your stroke, which you do from the catch until the end. This is the most efficient as such, but it needs a lot of shoulder mobility and a lot of body rotation to get there. I guess you it would be the more the sprinter torque propeller kind of style. I give it over to you to dive into that a bit.
Yeah, the 50 was probably my most competitive event, but I grew up in an era where we were learning more of the high elbow recovery. I did a lot of catch-up drills, and the straight arm freestyle swim, which we'll talk about in a moment, the straight arm sprint. I think really just started to become really popular around like 2012. So like maybe the last 10 years, we're seeing more of that straight arm recovery stroke with some of the world's best sprinters, but not all the world's best sprinters. So I actually don't employ that technique as much or at all. It's actually something I've been dabbling with more as an adult. I grew up doing more of the catch up, and probably on a full sprint, I'm using more of a gallop stroke with a high elbow recovery, where we're starting to blur the lines between just alternating arms. So in like a pure catch-up stroke, like you said, we're alternating strokes. You're always having one arm out in front, streamlining and gliding, and you're going to wait for that recovery stroke to come in before you switch. And the timing of that and the tempo and how much you glide is just dictated depending on how fast you want to go. But there is going to be more of a glide. There is going to be more of a tempo and a cadence to that, and waiting for the other stroke before you switch. And we'll see a lot of like both hands out in front in that. So it's popularized in like the adult swimming world with things like Total Immersion, Adam Ocean Walker, Swim Smooth, programs that are teaching efficiency and also catering to a demographic that's swimming triathlon, maybe channel swims, and swimming for a really long time where they need to be really efficient. And also adult swimmers who need to be really mindful of shoulder health and just minimizing torque on the shoulder and minimizing all those rotations and revolutions to keep people healthy and to keep people efficient. So it depends on what your goal is, and that's one way to swim. And we see people some of the world's best milers are using that style, and they're doing it very, very fast. But it all exists on a spectrum, as we often refer to with a lot of these examples that we're talking about and what we see.
I think so too. I mean, to the state, to the difference. I mean, the propeller or the movement where you would use for sprint, or where you have a lot, where you can create a lot of torque. Obviously has a lot of impact on the shoulders and as such, because you can do it. You know, the arms, and what a lot of people I think also miss, it's also a counterbalance thing. So if you do catch up, for example, you can also do catch up with, especially for longer distance or on the women. It's more common in women's swimming, when a woman swims, that they slam their arms to the front and still do the catch up kind of style. They don't have a high elbow recovery. They have more like a swing on it, the swing recovery. Let's put it that way. Straight arm swing. There's many names out there. I mean, also for each technique, I explain it how I do it. It is in the end, it is really dependent on the distance on one hand, but also on as you said, on the pressure which you have on your shoulders as such. Because if you want to do the straight arm, one of the first I know who did it was Michael Klim, actually, when he won his 100 meters world championships and Olympic medals, and also in that what is it in Sydney with the relay, when he was at the end and finishing up everything. I mean, that was the first time I saw it, and nowadays it's really just, and what there a lot of people miss out on, these people or these guys, they go to the gym and they do a lot of shoulder mobility and a lot of training that their shoulder muscles keep the whole joints together as such, and that should be actually also be thought. You should be thoughtful of it, and with a high elbow catch up style, you're more in a position where you can actually take pressure off and be, instead of having this counterbalance thing where you have one arm in the water doing the stroke and pushing, and the other arm straight, or can have a little bit of a bend, but straight arm is a counterbalance thing. In this catch up, you would have really actually balance it out with the one arm which is in front staying there, so we can close off like a sip swimming, some sort of when you swim there. I think this is people which they can get confused with it. Yeah. But it's interesting that you say about the shoulder problems, that the style, which I love a lot. I really love it and enjoy it. It's my passion. Would be actually considered for, especially that you say that, because there is a lot of people out there, or even on Instagram, telling me no, people don't do it because of the shoulder problems, and I think it's not entirely right. Like, I don't know. Just to have a bit of an anecdote there.
Yeah, I mean, we could talk about shoulder issues probably separately, but there's slightly different demands. So when you're in this high elbow recovery, you actually want to really relax the lower arm. The lever is shorter from a biomechanics standpoint. It's easier to get that arm around in this relaxed position. When the arm, but it's also going to be slightly slower. When the arm is straight, the lever is longer. We're creating more torque. It creates more force. But you're able to get that, which you're able to get a lot more speed. So you're able to really whip the arm over and almost throw the arm forward into the next recovery. And to your point, with the catch-up, we're always going to have one arm out in front, and we're going to be alternating. With the straight arm stroke, one arm's already going to be in the pull, and they're always kind of countering one another, where we're already pulling with one while we throw the arm over. And those two reciprocal actions help whip you into the next stroke. Mm-hmm. So it's really beneficial for speed. We're seeing people swim really, really fast, but it requires more strength, more torque. There's greater leverage. So we just need to be smart about it. Mm-hmm. It's going to demand a little bit more thoracic rotation, so upper rotation in your upper spine, and we tend to see the hips are flatter in that type of swimming style. Versus a catch-up style, we're going to see more rotation, which I like to refer more to as like a rock than a roll, and we're kind of rocking side to side, and we're using the hips and the thoracic spine. And requires quite a bit of shoulder mobility to get up into these positions. So both you actually want to be mindful of shoulder health. And there's pros and cons to each and different demands on the shoulders. So maybe we get into some of those demands on a separate topic, and just some of the risks and how people kind of lump those all into one category. Yeah. But suffice to say, I would look at the catch-up stroke and the straight arm stroke more as what is my end goal? How fast am
Yeah.
I trying to go? What's the available anatomy and function that I have based on where I'm at in my swimming career and what I learned, and then make a decision on what type of style that you want to use that's best for your goals and needs.
Well, yeah, I would agree. I would agree also from the speed point of view. I would also say the only thing is not everyone is a sprinter, not everyone is a long distance swimmer or a middle distance swimmer whatsoever, and then you need to decide which one you are, which type you are, and which one works better. Because there is a third one which is also a new one, but actually I think Matt Biondi was the one of the first who used it. Was the hybrid style. He made it famous for that. I would say. But that has a hybrid swimming for me has a lot to do with also fitness. You can sprint as with the straight arm recovery and the sprinting style where you have really the propeller version of it. You can easily do even if you're not that fit, because if you have the kilometers in your body, look at the older swimmers or the in age still pros and who do it. They don't swim 100 k's in a week anymore. They maybe, I don't know if they even get to 20 k's. They are a lot more in a gym or anywhere else, and they can do it much longer until they're 40, 45. I mean, one of the last ones who did it like this was Mark Forster from the UK, who was one of these sprinters, or now Laurent Manadou, I think. Florent Manadou, sorry for. So Florent Manadou, sorry Florent, who would do this this kind of way. And the hybrid for me was always really connected to fitness, because it needs a lot more strength. It is, in my opinion, this galloping. It is to a certain extent more. It is faster. That's why we see it on especially on or it can last. It would be faster as a when I sprinted. I can't go into the sprinting one, the propeller one. For me, it's too fast. I can't turn my arms like this. I need to sort of have a bit of a stability there, and so I moved directly from catch up into so it would start with me. It would start with a 2B kick and out of the arms that you have to catch up, and then you have less and less of a catch up, so it would be more ripped apart, some sort of the catch up. So instead of entering the water and the arm is in front, you would have before the water hand, just before the hand enters the water, you would start with the other stroke, and then obviously the kick will catch up. It will get more kicks, so we go from 2 to 4 to 6 B kick and even more. And this gives me actually the propulsion to lift up like a motorboat, so lift up my body, and then creates this movement where I can really switch from a catch up to this galloping, where you have concentrate on one side. So you take one side as the balancing side. For me, it's the left side, which would be thrown to the front to stay longer there until the next arm comes, and you would always almost have two arms at the same time pulling the water backwards. And we see it with Popovic, or with Michael Phelps in the 200-meter freestyle, or these kind of people who would actually celebrate this gallop or hybrid style in nowadays. There, I think for me it has something to do with fitness to be able to do a hybrid style.
Yeah, I mean, we saw it first in male swimmers, and now Katie Ledecky is using that type of style, and she deliberately changed her style. I don't know when, but over the years she started to adopt this hybrid style, which they also refer to as a galloping style or a loping style. And there is a bit of a hitch to the stroke, and one arm is longer, and you're going to have a shorter kind of high elbow recovery on one side and kind of a straighter arm on the other. It's also dictated by the distance. So typically in that style, we're going to see them breathing every other stroke to the same side, and one side's always going to be long and the other side's a little bit short. So a lot of events like 100 meters or over, David Popovich breathing every other stroke is going to use that type of technique. Katie Ledecky swimming 400, 800 is going to use that type of technique. So it really depends. But yes, requires a lot of strength. We were seeing it more in male swimmers, and now some female swimmers are starting to adopt it because it's strong, it's fast, it can be efficient, but it is a different style. You know, some common mistakes that I see with some swimmers doing it is there's a lot of this up and down movement. And you have a little bit of that with kind of the galloping or the loping, but I think it's helpful to remember that the goal is to go forward, and you
Mm.
still want to stay in that stroke and make sure that you're pushing water straight back and you're moving straight forward. And there's not a lot of like up and down with that, just because just by nature of that stroke, there's going to be a little bit of up and down, but we want to try to minimize it.
Yeah, true, true. I mean, for me, as I said, if I'm not that fit, or not now, but when I restarted, like to my projects of the Ironman, or this Ironman project, or future then channel swimming, um, when I did like started again with 1Ks, 2Ks, I would be actually, when I wanted to do the galloping, quickly you would be slower, because galloping can, that's why I'm saying with fitness you need to have a certain speed to be able to throw yourself forward, and if you don't have it, it's just an up and down, and that was my problem. So I don't even, if I don't feel like it, then I wouldn't do it. And I use it, and I mean, this is maybe something which an amateur or like someone who starts off now swimming not can't do, or isn't like, yeah, you need to be a certain seasoned swimmer to do that. Is that when I'm in an Ironman race, or when I was doing Klagenfurt, I would switch up between catch up and galloping. So in the beginning, when I wanted to get away from everyone else, I would do the hybrid style, so get out, because I can be a bit more bit faster, to then slow down into my rhythm, where I would really just do one side to the other one and do this catch up kind of style to get to the front. And whenever I wanted to, or thought I would lose a bit of speed, I would start to hybrid, like the hybrid again, start more kicking, and then speed up again, just to give more insight also for triathletes here, to do it. So for me, it would be, if you can create the speed and sustain it at the beginning of the race, just to get away from it, then do that. Then retire back to your normal style, which you have, which is comfortable for you, you can sustain. And then at the end of the distance, to activate your blood again in your legs and everywhere, you will go back to the hybrid style and to activate again, so you can get from the flat position into the like from the horizontal position in the vertical position, to run towards your bike and to the transition area. So there, this is how I use it nowadays, as not being a pro or like a swimmer anymore in a pool. Just as give a bit of an insight there, I think.
Yeah. I think too in open water, it can be helpful to use that type of stroke for sighting, because you're able to rise up a little bit and get a sight. Also, depending on like chop and conditions, that cadence might help you kind of break through different chops and different elements in the water. The point I hope we're making with a lot of these talks is that all this is on a spectrum. There's camps at each end of those spectrums that people are like, oh, the only way to do it. This is the only way to do it. But what we're finding is the best swimmers are adopting all these practices, and maybe leaning on one particular style, like to be the best, or to be their best in that particular event. But they have the bandwidth to be able to go in both directions depending on the demands, the conditions, and they're also open to both ideas, and not so maybe like narrowly focused on one and thinking that's the only way to do it.
I think it's a good point. I think we need to emphasize this throughout our talks anyway, because we have a certain view, or both has a certain view. I think it's the same thing also with the breathing pattern. In the end, you need to be comfortable with doing it. There are certain laws in water which are there for everyone, but certainly after some point, everybody is different, and every body structure is different. Someone has shorter arms and longer legs, and someone has longer arms and shorter legs. So it's a whole different story again, and so it is a spectrum. I agree. The only thing what we try to do is maybe find, with talking about these spectrums or the different styles, giving some insights on how we do it, and ultimately how we coach about it, so that people can pick out what is the best for them and then use it. Well, thanks very much for this little excursion. Catch up, sprint, and hybrid, high like straight arm recovery and high elbow recovery. As I said, as we usually say, follow our both accounts. We are really good people to explain swimming and talk about swimming, and also visualize it on our accounts, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok. We are present everywhere. If you want to first of all, also like and share and turn on the notification on here on YouTube or on Instagram or wherever we are. And also, if you have certain topics which you want to have us talk about or include in our discussions, put them down in the comments section and then let us know what you want to know. And if it's just saying that we do a great job and you learn so much about, we always love the engagement on that one as well. Thank you so much for that. And thanks, Dan.
Yeah, thanks everybody. Thanks, Marcus.